She said yes to the proposal at gunpoint. Not literally. There was no gun. But the man sitting across from her in the gray conference room on the 37th floor of the Lim Group Tower had just placed a folder on the table between them, and inside the folder was evidence that would send her brother to prison for 7 years minimum, and the proposal he was making, calm, specific, delivered with the flat precision of someone who had rehearsed every word, was the only thing standing between Dammy's future and a cell in Seoul. So when Lim Taeyang said, "Marry me," publicly, convincingly, for 1 year. In exchange, this folder disappears. Nkechi Osei said yes. And it felt exactly like a gun. She had been in Seoul for 3 years. 31 years old, Lagos-born, currently the head of procurement at a mid-tier logistics firm that serviced 3 of the Lim Group's subsidiary companies, which was how Lim Taeyang had access to her brother's financial records, because Dammy had been using her employee access codes to run a side operation through the procurement system, and Lim Taeyang had discovered it 4 months ago, and had been sitting on it ever since. Waiting, she now understood for exactly this moment. "Why me?" she said. Her voice was steady. She was proud of how steady it was. "Because you are credible," he said. "You have a professional reputation, a social profile, and a documented history of interactions with the Lim Group that makes a relationship plausible. You are not from Korea, which makes the story more interesting to the press, which is what I need. I need this marriage to be visible." "You want the press," she said. "Why?" "Because someone is trying to take my company from me," he said. "And the method they have chosen involves my personal life. A credible marriage provides a particular kind of protection." He looked at her steadily. "You don't need to know more than that right now." "I need to know everything," she said. "If I am agreeing to this, and I have not agreed yet, I need the full schematic. Not the parts you have decided I can handle." Something moved in his face. "Fractional." She filed it. "You'll have it," he said. "In stages. As trust develops." "Trust," she said. "You've just used my brother as leverage and you're talking about trust." "Yes," he said. He did not flinch. "I am aware of the contradiction. I am offering you the best deal available given the circumstances." She looked at the folder on the table. She thought about Dammy, 26, reckless, brilliant in the disorganized way of someone whose intelligence had outrun his discipline, who had made a series of decisions that had seemed, to him, like small shortcuts and had been, in aggregate, the kind of thing that ended careers and put people in cells. She thought about her mother in Lagos who did not know and could not know and would not survive knowing. 1 year, she said. 1 year, he confirmed. Public-facing. Documented. You move into the Lim residence. You attend functions. You present as my wife to anyone who asks. In private, you maintain your own life entirely. I will not make personal demands. And the folder. Sealed. Untouched. Return to you in full at the end of 12 months. He paused. If you fulfill the terms. And if I don't, then we discuss the consequences at that point, he said. She looked at him. Lim Taeyang was 38 years old, and he was the specific kind of handsome that power produces, not soft, not performative, but precise, like a building that has been designed without a wasted line. He had a reputation she knew well from 3 years of working in his company's orbit. Exacting, private, someone who did not lose and did not forgive losing, and had built one of Korea's most significant commercial real estate empires from a position of being the second son of a family that had expected nothing from him. She did not trust him. She was going to say yes anyway. I want the terms in writing, she said. A legal document. Signed. Not a Lim Group document. Independent counsel, both sides. He nodded. I want a separate account, she said. My salary continued through the year, deposited to an account he has no access to. Dammy's debts to the procurement system cleared before the marriage is announced. Not promised, cleared. I'll need proof. Agreed, he said. And I want to know, she said, before I sign anything, who is trying to take your company, and why they need your personal life to do it. He looked at her for a long moment. My father, he said. She was quiet. My father, he said again, who built the original Lim Group and restructured it in his will to include a personal conduct clause. If I am deemed by the board, which he still controls through proxies, to be conducting myself in ways that are detrimental to the company's image, they can trigger a forced transfer of my shares. The clause was written specifically around personal instability. A sustained public marriage removes the primary instrument they've been using.
He paused.
He has been building a case for 8 months that I am personally unstable. The press coverage has been managed by him. Your father is trying to steal your company, she said. Yes, he said. He gave it to me when I was 30, and he regretted it when I did not run it the way he wanted. Now he wants it back. Something cold moved through his voice. He will not get it back. She sat with this. If I do this, she said, I am not a prop. I am a person who has agreed to a contract. You will treat me accordingly. Yes, he said. If at any point I determine that what you're asking me to perform constitutes something I'm not willing to perform, I will tell you, and we will renegotiate. If you are not willing to renegotiate, I walk, and the consequences of that are on you. Yes, he said. And you will not, she said, use any additional leverage against me or my family for the duration of this arrangement. If I find out you are holding other information, any other instrument, the deal is void, and I go to the independent counsel we agreed on. Yes, he said. She looked at the folder one more time. Get me the legal team, she said. I want this done by Friday. She said yes. He said agreed. And they both think they know what they're walking into. Subscribe because they don't. Drop a comment. Who do you think has the upper hand right now? She called her best friend from the cab on the way home. Yemi Adisa had been her person since secondary school in Lagos, the kind of friend who operates at the frequency of someone who has known you before you knew yourself and has never fully updated their mental model of you, which is both the most irritating and the most essential quality a person can have. I need to tell you something, Nkechi said. Is it bad? Yemi said. It's complicated. That's worse than bad, Yemi said. Talk. She told her. Not everything. Not the folder, not Dammy's full exposure, not the precise legal structure she had just negotiated in a gray conference room at gunpoint without a gun. But enough.
A man.
A proposal.
A year.
An arrangement. Yemi was quiet for exactly 4 seconds, which was how long it took her to process and decide. Lim Taeyang, she said. Yes. The Lim Group Taeyang. Yes. Nkechi. A pause. You're not doing this for money.
No.
It's Dammy. A silence. Yes, Nkechi said. Yemi breathed out. Long, controlled, the kind of exhale that is doing the work of several sentences simultaneously. Okay, she said finally. Okay. You've made the decision. So, we don't relitigate it. We manage it.
What do you need from me?
I need you to be the one person who knows the full truth, Nkechi said. If things go sideways, if any of this goes sideways, you're the one I call first. I am always the one you call first, Yemi said. That's a given. What else? I need you to not tell anyone. Not our girls, not your husband, not my mother, especially not my mother. Your mother would find a way to show up at his house with a wooden spoon, Yemi said. She would absolutely show up with a wooden spoon, Nkechi said. Okay. Sealed.
A pause. Nkechi.
Be careful. Men who use leverage don't stop using leverage, even when they say they will. I know, Nkechi said. Watch yourself, Yemi said. Watch him more. I will, Nkechi said. The cab moved through Seoul in the early evening, the city lighting itself up for the night, the Han River somewhere south doing its patient silver thing. She looked out the window and thought about the year ahead and about all the things she knew how to do. Manage a procurement system, negotiate contracts, read rooms, carry weight without showing the carrying, and told herself that this was just another thing she knew how to do. She almost believed it. The legal documents were signed on a Friday. Independent counsel on both sides. The agreement was 12 pages. She had read it 4 times, annotated it twice, sent it to a lawyer friend in Lagos who had no connection to Seoul and whose opinion she trusted. The lawyer friend had called at midnight Seoul time, Lagos time being 2 hours behind, and said, "The terms favor you on exit conditions. The confidentiality clause is mutual, which is good. The residency requirement is the most restrictive element. You'll need to be careful about what that means for your personal life." I understand, Nkechi had said. There's a clause on page 9, the lawyer had said. Section 4.3. Parties agree that the arrangement will be maintained in good faith for the duration, including reasonable public display of mutual regard. Nkechi, reasonable public display of mutual regard is a phrase that means different things to different people. I know, she said. Make sure you know what he means by it, the lawyer said. Before you sign. She had gone back to Lim Taeyang's legal team. She had asked. His counsel had to find it. Attendance at public events, a shared social media presence managed by his PR team, non-contradictory public statements. No physical requirements beyond what would be visible at events. She had insisted on adding a definition to the clause. His counsel had agreed. She signed on Friday. The wedding was announced on a Monday. The press release, crafted by Lim Taeyang's PR director, a sharp woman named Director Kong who had looked at Nkechi with the appraising eye of someone calculating variables, described a private ceremony held abroad, a relationship of 2 years, and a couple who had chosen to begin their married life in Seoul before making a formal announcement. The photograph accompanying the release had been taken on Saturday afternoon in a studio in Gangnam. Nkechi in a cream dress she had chosen herself, Lim Taeyang in a dark suit. Both of them turned slightly toward each other in a configuration that read as intimate, without requiring intimacy. She had looked at the photograph before it was released and felt something she did not examine. By Monday evening, the press coverage was exactly what Lim Taeyang had needed. Front page of 3 business publications. Trending on every Korean social media platform. A narrative that had, in one clean stroke, reframed the personal instability story his father had been building for 8 months into a story about a private man who had, quietly, built a real life. Director Kong sent a message at 11 that night. First hurdle cleared. Board meeting Thursday. We'll have preliminary read on proxy position by Wednesday. Lim Taeyang forwarded it to Nkechi with a single line. Thank you. She read it in her new room in the Lim residence, a guest suite on the 3rd floor of a house in Songbuk-dong that was the kind of house that made the Shin family compound she had heard about from a colleague look modest, and thought about what thank you meant from a man who had put her brother's future in a folder and used it as a bargaining chip. She thought, it means nothing yet. It means I have been useful. Useful is not the same as safe. She put her phone down and went to sleep, and when she dreamed about the folder, and about the way Lim Taeyang had looked at her when she said I am not a prop, and about the thing she had filed away in his face at that moment, and had not yet found a name for. The press ran it. The board is watching. And she's sleeping 3 floors away from a man she doesn't trust. Subscribe, because Thursday's board meeting changes everything. The Thursday board meeting produced a result that nobody in the room had expected. Nkechi was not in the room. She was at her own office. She had kept her position at the logistics firm, a condition she had insisted on because disappearing into the Lim household without professional identity was not something she was willing to do when Lim Taeyang called at 3:47 in the afternoon. The proxy vote failed, he said. My father didn't have the numbers he thought he had. 2 of the independent directors broke from his block. A pause. The conduct clause review has been suspended pending a formal board audit. That's good, she said. It's not over, he said. He'll regroup. He always regroups. But we have time now. Another pause. I wanted to tell you directly. She thought about being told directly. About the difference between a man who sends information through channels and a man who calls himself. Thank you for telling me, she said. A silence. Are you busy tonight? He said. She looked at the procurement report open on her screen. Why? She said. Director Kong wants us visible this week. There's an event, a gallery opening in Insadong. Low-key. A few press photographers, but nothing formal. She thinks it's good timing. What time?
Nkechi said.
7. She looked at the procurement report. At the window. At Seoul going about its afternoon.
I'll meet you there, she said.
The gallery was the kind of place that existed in the upper register of Seoul's cultural life, a converted hanok with white walls and art that was mostly excellent and partly bewildering, the kind of opening where the art was secondary to the fact of being seen at it. She arrived at 7:12 and found him already there, talking to a man she recognized as a senior figure in the cultural ministry, and the moment she entered the room, she understood what Director Kong had meant by good timing, because the shift in the room's energy when the two of them were in it together was immediate and legible. He saw her across the room. He excused himself from the ministry figure and crossed to her, and the cameras that were positioned at the gallery's edges caught the moment. A man moving through a room toward his wife, and she understood that this was the performance, and it needed to be convincing. She met him halfway. "You look," he started. "Don't," she said quietly, with a smile fixed for the cameras. "Skip the scripted part. Just stand next to me, and look like you're glad I'm here." A beat. Something happened in his face that she was beginning to recognize, the fractional crack in the controlled surface, there and gone.
"I can do that," he said.
They moved through the gallery. She looked at the art and said genuine things about it because she had opinions about art and she was not going to perform opinions she did not have. He listened. At one point, in front of a large canvas that was predominantly black with a single diagonal of white, she said, "The restraint is the whole point. Everything important is in what he didn't paint." And he looked at the painting and then at her and said nothing, but she felt the quality of his attention shift in a way that she noted without knowing what to do with. Later, by the drinks table, a woman from a society magazine approached with the practiced warmth of someone who makes a living from other people's public moments. "Mrs. Lim," she said, "how are you finding Seoul as a permanent home?" Nkechi looked at her. "I've been here 3 years," she said. "It stopped being someone else's city a long time ago." She smiled. "But yes, it's a good city to build something in. I think we both feel that." The "we both" landed exactly as intended. The journalist smiled and made a note. In the cab afterward, Lim Taeyang looked at her. "That was well done," he said. "I know," she said. "I was there." Another fractional thing in his face. This one she thought might be amusement. "The restraint is the whole point," he said. She looked at him. "What?" she said. "What you said about the painting," he said. "Everything important is in what he didn't paint." He looked out the window. "I thought about it for the rest of the evening." She was quiet for a moment. "Don't read into that," she said. "I'm not reading into anything," he said. "I'm telling you that it was a good observation." "It was," she agreed. "Good night, Taeyang." She got out of the residence and went upstairs and sat on the edge of the bed in the guest suite and thought about the gallery and the painting and the way he had said, "I'm telling you that it was a good observation," which was such a precise and restrained and specific thing to say. She thought, "Don't." Then she got ready for bed and kept not thinking about it all the way until she fell asleep. The board was held off. The gallery was convincing. And she's telling herself, "Don't." Drop a comment. Is it already too late for don't? 3 weeks into the arrangement, she met his father. It was not planned. She had been told that Lim Taeyang, 73 years old, founder of the original Lim Group, currently operating through a network of board proxies and a family office in Apgujeong that functioned as the organizational nerve center for his ongoing campaign against his own son, did not attend family functions, had not spoken to Taeyang in 14 months, and was in all practical terms a hostile external actor rather than a family member. She had been told this, and she had believed it, and then she had answered the door of the Songbuk-dong residence on a Saturday morning when Taeyang was at his office, and she was on her 3rd cup of coffee, and a man she recognized from press photographs was standing on the front step. He was shorter than she expected. Old in the way of men who have been powerful for a long time, a particular quality of physical reduction that stands in stark contrast to the magnitude of the presence. He looked at her with the specific attention of someone conducting an evaluation they have already prepared for, but want to verify against the original. "Mrs. Lim," he said. In Korean. "Formal register." "Mr. Lim," she said. "Same register." "Exactly the same." He looked at her for a moment. "May I come in?" he said. "No," she said. He blinked. She kept her expression exactly neutral. "I beg your pardon," he said. "My husband is not home," she said. "I don't receive visitors without his knowledge. If you'd like to make an appointment, I'll pass the request on." She held his gaze. "I'm sure his calendar has availability." He looked at her for a long moment. She could see the calculation happening in real time. This was not what he had expected, and she had learned, in 3 years of working in Korean corporate culture, that disrupting expectations was its own form of power. "You're not what I expected," he said. "Most people find that," she said pleasantly. "My son chose well," he said. It came out begrudging, like something pulled through a tight space. "I know," she said. "Goodbye, Mr. Lim." She closed the door. She stood in the hallway for 30 seconds with her heart at a rate she was not going to acknowledge. Then she called Taeyang. He picked up on the second ring. "Your father was just at the door," she said. A silence. "What did he say?" he said. "I didn't let him in," she said. "I told him to make an appointment." Another silence. Longer. "You didn't let him in," he said. "He showed up without notice at your home to see what he could see," she said. "I gave him nothing to see except a woman who knows how to answer a door." The silence again. And then something she had not heard from him in 3 weeks. A sound that was close to a laugh. Not a full laugh, but the leading edge of one. "I'm coming home," he said. "I'll make tea," she said. She made tea. She sat at the kitchen table with her coffee and waited. When he came in 20 minutes later, he stood in the kitchen doorway and looked at her and said, "Tell me exactly what happened." Everything, he said. Every word. She told him. Every word. He listened with the complete attention she had learned was his specific quality, the stillness of a person who is not performing listening but actually doing it. When she finished, he was quiet. "He said I chose well," he said. "He did," she said. Grudgingly. "That's the first positive thing he has said about any decision I've made in 14 years, he said. She looked at him. "That bothers you," she said. It wasn't a question. "No," he said. Then, "Yes. Not because I want his approval. Because it means even he can see," he stopped. "Can see what?" she said. He looked at his tea. "That this looks real," he said. She held her coffee cup. "It needs to look real," she said. "That's the whole point." "Yes," he said. "That's the whole point." The kitchen was very quiet. "Can I ask you something?" she said. "Yes." "What happened between you and your father? Not the company, the actual thing. The first thing before the company was in it." He looked at her for a long time. She had learned to wait out his silences without filling them, which was its own form of fluency. "I was the second son," he said finally. "My brother Taeyun was the heir, the one who was prepared for the company from birth, who had the specific grooming that my father believed produced the right kind of man. I was the one who was allowed to do what he wanted as long as it didn't embarrass the family." He paused. "I built KH Design, my own firm, nothing to do with the Lim Group, from nothing when I was 26. In 4 years it was profitable. In 6 years it was significant. My father noticed." His voice was flat and informational. "Taeyun had a substance problem. It was managed publicly for 3 years. And then it couldn't be managed anymore. And my father transferred the Lim Group to me because I was the only viable option, and I took it because it was the right business decision, and I was stupid enough to think that taking it would mean something to him other than solving a problem." He stopped. It meant nothing to him other than solving a problem. "When I didn't run it the way he intended, when I changed the strategy, restructured the subsidiaries, took the company in a direction he had not outlined, he decided he wanted it back. Because I was still, to him, the second son. The temporary solution." She sat with this. "Your brother," she said. "Taeyun. Is he?" "He's in recovery," Taeyang said. "He's been clean for 2 years. He doesn't want the company. He told my father that clearly. My father doesn't believe him, or doesn't want to believe him, because having Taeyun as the theoretical heir is a useful instrument for pressuring me." He looked at his tea. "My father is a man who has confused instruments with people his entire life. He does it with everyone. His sons, his board, his wife when she was alive. And now with me," she said. A pause. "I did do the same thing to you," he said. "I know that." She looked at him. "You did," she said. "That's something we're going to have to live with for the next 11 months. How we handle it from here is the question." He looked at her. "How do you want to handle it?" he said. "Honestly," she said. "Within the terms. No more leverage. No more instruments. If you need something from me, you ask." "Yes," he said. "And I'll do the same," she said. "If I need something from you, including information, I'll ask." "Yes," he said. She finished her coffee. Set the cup down. Your father's going to come back, she said. He's not done. Whatever he came to see today, he saw enough to regroup.
I know, he said.
Then we should be ready, she said. Tell me the next move he's likely to make. He looked at her, with the quality she was accumulating data points on, the specific quality of a man who is realizing he has been wrong about something in a way that recalibrates rather than destabilizes. I'll get Director Kong, he said. She should be in this conversation. Good, she said. Make the call. She closed the door in his father's face. He came home. And now they're planning together instead of around each other. Subscribe. The real danger hasn't arrived yet. Director Kong arrived at the Songbukdong residence 40 minutes later with a tablet, a strategy document she had apparently prepared 3 days ago for exactly this contingency, and the energy of someone who has been waiting for the adults in the room to start talking to each other. She sat across from both of them at the kitchen table and said, without preamble, Lim Taeyang's next move is not legal. The board audit bought us time, but it also told him the legal route is closed for now. He'll go personal. She looked at Nkechi. That means he'll go for you.
How? Nkechi said.
Background exposure, Director Kong said. He'll hire investigators. Dig into your history, your family, your finances, your professional record. Anything that can be framed as a liability, anything that makes the marriage look like a liability, goes to the press. He's done it before. He had information planted about Taeyang's previous relationship that contributed to the breakup. She paused. He plays long, and he plays dirty. Nkechi looked at Taeyang. Your previous relationship, she said. It's not relevant to now, he said. If his father weaponized it, it might become relevant, she said. I need to know what can be found. He was quiet. Her name was Park Ji-yeon, he said. We were together for 2 years. My father decided she was strategically unsuitable. She was from a family with debt issues, which he believed created exposure. He had information about her family's finances released to a business journalist. The story ran. She left. She said she wasn't equipped for what his interference meant. He paused. She was right. I couldn't protect her from it. Nkechi looked at him. Something moved in her chest that she told herself was professional assessment and was also something else. He'll try the same with me, she said. Yes, Director Kong said. Which is why I need to know what's there before he finds it. Nkechi looked at the kitchen table, at her coffee cup, at the window. There's my brother, she said. Already managed, Taeyang said. The debt is cleared. The records are sealed. There's nothing to find. He'll find the gap, she said. Smart investigators find gaps even when the records are sealed. They can't prove what's in the gap, but they can imply. Then we control the narrative around the gap, Director Kong said. If there's a gap, we frame it before he does. Can you give me enough to work with? Nkechi thought about Dami, about her mother, about Lagos and the specific weight of a family that has always depended on her being the one who holds things together. My brother made some financial errors when he was 24, she said. They were resolved. He's been clean since. He's now working at an engineering firm in Abuja, and he's doing well. She looked at Director Kong. If that story comes out, it comes out about a young man who made mistakes and rebuilt himself. That's the frame. I can work with that, Director Kong said. What else? Nothing that can be weaponized, Nkechi said. I've been careful my whole life. Some people are careful because they're hiding things. I'm careful because I grew up knowing that the margin for error was smaller for me than for other people. She looked at them both. You already know that. Yes, Taeyang said. Quietly. Director Kong looked between them with the expression of someone who is tracking a variable that was not in her original strategy document. I'll start building the counter-narrative package, she said. Taeyang, I need the Taeyun situation formalized. If your father is going to use him as a proxy threat, we need Taeyun on record as not wanting the company. A statement. Ideally, something public. He'll agree, Taeyang said. We spoke last month. He's in a better place. He wants to stay out of this. Get the statement, Director Kong said. And get it soon. She stood, collected her tablet, and left with the efficiency of someone who has never spent a meeting minute she didn't need to spend. In the kitchen, it was quiet again. Your brother Taeyun, Nkechi said. You spoke to him last month. Yes. You didn't mention that.
It wasn't, he stopped.
Looked at her. I didn't know if it was relevant to the arrangement. Everything is relevant to the arrangement, she said. We established that. Ask me, I'll ask you. Remember? He looked at her for a moment. I spoke to Taeyang last month, he said. He's clean. He's been going to recovery meetings every week for 18 months. He has a small apartment in Busan. He makes furniture.
He stopped.
He's the best I've ever seen him. He says he's sorry for what the family situation cost me. I told him there was nothing to apologize for. Is that true? She said. A pause.
No, he said.
It cost me a great deal. But the accounting of what costs what in a family is not something I want to spend my energy on. That's very controlled of you, she said.
I know, he said.
She looked at him.
Taeyang, she said.
Yes. Are you angry? At your father? At the situation? At any of it? Not the managed version. The actual version. He looked at the window. Yes, he said. I am very angry. I have been building something for 15 years, and I have been doing it the right way. No shortcuts, no instruments, no weapons. I have been building it honestly. And the person who is trying to take it from me is doing it with weapons and instruments and leverage, and he is my father, and the anger of that, he stopped.
Yes.
I am angry. Good, she said. He looked at her. Good, he said. Anger is useful if you know where to put it, she said. You know where to put it. You've been putting it in the work. That's why the company is what it is. She paused. Don't let him make you sloppy with it. Keep it where it's been. He looked at her for a long time. Where did you come from? He said. Lagos, she said. I've told you. The kitchen was quiet. Outside, Seoul was going about its afternoon. Somewhere in Apgujeong, a 73-year-old man was regrouping. Neither of them moved for a moment.
Thank you, he said.
For the door this morning. I was just answering a door, she said. No, you weren't, he said. She picked up her coffee cup.
No, she said.
I wasn't. She told him to keep his anger where it belongs. He asked where she came from. Subscribe because Lim Taeyang is already making his next move. The article appeared 6 weeks later. It was in an online publication, not the major press, not a named journalist, but the kind of outlet that has just enough credibility to be cited and just enough deniability to be used. The headline was careful. Questions arise about Lim Group CEO's wife's background. The body of the article was more careful still. Nothing defamatory, nothing provably false, but a series of implications arranged like stones across a river, each one small enough to step on individually, but collectively forming a path to a specific destination. The destination was this. Nkechi Osei had a brother with financial irregularities in his past. The marriage had been announced abruptly. The couple had been photographed together fewer than 10 times in public in 2 months. Was the marriage what it appeared to be? Nkechi read the article at 7 in the morning, at the kitchen table, with her coffee, and felt the specific chill of a plan being executed by someone who knew exactly what they were doing. She called Director Kong. I saw it, Director Kong said. The counter-narrative package is ready. We can release today if you approve. Send it to me first, Nkechi said. She read the package. It was good, precise, factual, human. The story of Dammy reframed as Director Kong had promised. A young man who had made errors and rebuilt. The story of the marriage framed as private and real. Quotes from 2 colleagues who had worked with Nkechi for years, attesting to her professional character. A photograph, candid, unposed, taken at the gallery event, of her and Taeyang looking at the painting she had commented on, his head turned slightly toward her, her face lit with something genuine. She looked at the photograph for a long time. Run it, she said. By noon, the counter-narrative had been picked up by 4 major outlets. By 4 in the afternoon, the original article had been largely drowned. By evening, a well-known tech journalist had written a think piece about the ethics of rumor-based corporate destabilization that, without naming Lim Taeyang directly, described exactly what he was doing and why it was happening. At 7 that evening, Taeyang knocked on the door of the guest suite. She opened it. The board has been watching, he said. 3 of the independent directors have signaled that what's happening today has shifted their position. The conduct clause review is being formally closed. He paused. It's not over. He'll find another way. But this specific instrument is done. She looked at him. The photograph helped, she said. The gallery one. It looked real. Yes, he said. She was going to say, because we performed it well. She was going to say, we're getting better at the arrangement. She was going to say one of the things that maintained the architecture of what they had agreed this was. She said, come in. I'll make tea. He came in. She made tea. They sat at the small table by the guest suite window, not the kitchen, not the drawing room, not any of the formal spaces of the house, but this, the window table that overlooked the pine trees, with the city lights beyond and 2 cups of tea and the specific quality of an evening that has been stressful and is now, briefly, still. Can I ask you something? He said. Yes. The article, he said. The implications about your brother. That was in the file I showed you. That information, I put it in the folder and I used it against you. And today it was used against you again by my father because it exists.
He paused.
I'm sorry for that. Both instances. She looked at her tea. The first time was transactional, she said. I knew what it was when I agreed to the terms. The second time was not yours to control. She looked up. The apology, though, that matters. That you named it specifically. I've been thinking about it for weeks, he said. About the right way to say it. I don't have a lot of practice with apologies. I can tell, she said. This one was good, though. Specific. No excuses attached. I learned that from watching you, he said. She looked at him. The pine trees moved outside the window. The city was doing its night preparation. The tea was still warm.
Taeyang, she said.
Yes. What happens at the end of the year? He was quiet for a moment. The terms of the agreement are fulfilled, he said. The folder is returned. You are free to return to your own life. And what does your life look like? She said. After. I hadn't thought beyond the 12 months, he said. You should start thinking about it, she said. Because I think your father's attacks are going to change shape. When the formal instruments fail, he'll go for the personal directly. And personal for you is, she stopped. You, he said.
Me, she said.
Or whatever this is. Whatever he thinks this is. What does he think this is?
Taeyang said.
She looked at him. He was looking back at her with the quality she had been cataloging for months. The river water stillness, the complete attention, the expression of someone who is asking a question they already know the beginning of the answer to and are afraid of the end of it. I think, she said carefully, that your father came to this house 6 weeks ago and looked at me and concluded that this is real. And that conclusion is the most dangerous thing for him and the most useful thing for you. She paused. The question is whether it's only useful. The silence that followed was the kind that has weight. I don't know how to answer that, he said. I'm not asking you to answer it tonight, she said. I'm asking you to know that the question exists. I know, he said. They drank their tea. The city was outside. Neither of them said anything else, and neither of them needed to. The board closed the clause review. The apology landed. And she asked the question neither of them is ready to answer. Subscribe because his father just made a move that changes everything again. 2 weeks later, Taeyun Lim called. Nkechi was at her office when the call came through, not to her personal phone but to the Lim residence's main line, forwarded to her by the household staff because Taeyang was in a meeting and unreachable and the caller had said it was urgent. This is Lim Taeyun, the voice said. It was quieter than she expected. Steadier. I'm Taeyang's brother. I know who you are, she said. Is everything okay? No, he said. My father, he called me last night. He said if I don't sign a statement declaring my willingness to reassume control of the company, he'll release information about my recovery. About specific incidents from before I got clean. Things that, he paused. Things that would hurt people I care about. People outside the family. She sat very still. He's using you, she said. As an instrument against Taeyang. He's been using me my whole life, Taeyun said. I know that. I've been in recovery long enough to see it clearly. But this time, if he releases what he's threatening to release, someone who doesn't deserve the exposure gets hurt. His voice was even. I can't let that happen. Are you calling because you're considering signing? She said. I'm calling because I don't know what to do, he said. And Taeyang told me in our last conversation that I should trust you if I needed to. He said that specifically. Trust Nkechi if you need to.
I found that unusual coming from him.
My brother doesn't say things like that about people easily. She closed her eyes for a moment. Don't sign anything, she said. Don't respond to him at all. Not yes, not no, not anything. Give me 48 hours. What are you going to do? He said. I'm going to talk to your brother, she said. And then we're going to figure out what the actual move is. But, Taeyang, I need you to understand something. Your father is a man who uses leverage. Leverage only works if the other person is afraid of the thing being threatened. The question is whether the thing he's threatening to release is survivable. A long pause. It's survivable, he said. For me, but for the person it touches. Does that person know about the incidents? She said.
No.
Then the question is whether they hear it from your father first or from you first, she said. Which of those is better? The silence on the line was very long. From me, he said finally. Obviously from me. Then you know what to do, she said. And it has nothing to do with your father's deadline. Do it because it's the right thing. Do it now before he has the chance. And then there's nothing left for him to weaponize. Another silence. You sound like my therapist, Taeyang said. Your therapist is right, she said. He made a sound that was the beginning of a laugh. Oh, okay.
Okay.
48 hours. Call me if you need to talk it through, she said. Anytime. She hung up and immediately called Taeyang. He answered before the first ring finished.
Taeyang called me, she said.
Your father has moved to the next instrument. You need to hear this now. She told him. The silence on his end of the call was the specific quality of a man receiving something he has been bracing for and finding it worse than he'd prepared for. He's threatening Taeyang's recovery, he said. Specific incidents.
Yes.
There's someone outside the family who could be hurt by the exposure. I know who it is, Taeyang said. I've suspected for a while. Taeyang, he stopped. Taeyang has someone. He hasn't told me directly. But he stopped again. It doesn't matter right now. What matters is. What matters, she said, is that your father has just moved from attacking you to attacking your brother's personal life. That's a line. And we need to decide right now whether we are going to let him keep drawing lines or whether we draw one ourselves. What kind of line? He said. The kind you can't unsay, she said. I've been thinking about this since the article. The counter-narratives, the board maneuvering. We've been playing defense. Every time he attacks, we absorb and respond. But he keeps finding new instruments because we keep giving him room to find them. She paused. What would happen if you took everything you know about what he's been doing, the board proxies, the media placements, the pressure on Taeyang, and put it in front of independent journalists? Not as a company story. As a story about a man who has been running a sustained campaign of familial manipulation and corporate interference. A silence. That burns everything, he said. Yes, she said. It's public, it's permanent, and it removes his ability to operate in the dark, which is the only place he's effective. She paused. You said you built this company honestly, that you didn't use weapons. But Taeyang, you are being attacked with weapons and your brother is being used as a human shield. The question is not whether it's ugly to fight back. The question is what you're willing to let your father do before you stop him. The longest silence yet. If I do this, he said, it destroys whatever remains of the family structure. My relationship with my father becomes. It's already destroyed, she said gently. You know that. The question is whether you let it be destroyed on his terms or yours. She heard him breathing, thinking. The specific quality of a man who has spent 15 years building something carefully and is being asked to pick it up and use it as a weapon and is deciding whether he can live with that. Yes, he said finally. Let's do it. She drew the line. He said yes. Subscribe because this is the move that changes everything and there's no going back from it. The piece ran on a Thursday, 3 weeks after Taeyang's call. Not a PR counter-narrative, a full investigative feature, co-published by 2 respected outlets, built from documentation that Lim Taeyang had spent 3 weeks collating with director Kong and a team of lawyers. The board proxy trail. The media placements traceable to Lim Chulsa's family office. The documented pressure on Taeyang, including a recording Taeyang had made of the phone call, legal in Korea with one-party consent, in which his father explicitly named the leverage he was planning to use. The recording was the spine of the piece. By noon on Thursday, the Lim Group's stock had moved. Not dramatically. The company's fundamentals were intact, and the market understood that the story was a family conflict rather than a business one. But the proxy block's position was untenable. By 3 in the afternoon, 2 of the most significant proxy holders had issued statements distancing themselves from Lim Taeyang's family office. By evening, Lim Taeyang himself had released a statement through his personal counsel. It was brief and formal and said nothing real, which was its own form of concession. Nkechi read it at the kitchen table in Seoul-sharp with her coffee. Taeyang was across from her also reading. His face had the quality she had come to know as his version of the aftermath of something hard. Not relief, not triumph, but the particular settling of a person who has done something irreversible and is now in the first minutes of the world it produced. "It's done," she said.
For now, he said.
"He'll regroup. He'll regroup into a much smaller space," she said. "The proxy block is broken. The board audit closed the conduct clause. The media strategy is exposed. He doesn't have the instruments anymore." Taeyang looked at the table. "I spoke to him this morning," he said. "Before the piece ran. I called him, and I told him what was coming. I don't know what I thought. That I owed him the warning." "What did he say?" she said. "Nothing," Taeyang said. He was quiet for a long time, and then he said, "You were always more capable than I gave you credit for. I think I knew that, and it frightened me." And then he hung up. Nkechi was quiet. "Is that enough?" she said. From him. "No," he said. "It's not enough. But it's the first true thing he's ever said to me directly." He looked at his coffee. "I don't know what to do with it." "You don't have to do anything with it today," she said. "That's the thing about truth. It doesn't have a deadline. It just waits." He looked at her. "How long have you been this wise?" he said. "Since always," she said. "You've been too busy using me as an instrument to notice." He looked at her for a moment. Then, quietly, "I have not been using you as an instrument for a long time. I think you know that." The kitchen was very still. She looked at him. The thing she had been not thinking about for months was sitting in the room with them now, visible, patient, waiting to be named. "We have 6 months left on the agreement," she said. "Yes," he said. "And you have what you needed," she said. "The board is secure. The proxy block is broken. Taeyang is protected." "Yes," he said. "So, the arrangement could technically," she started. "Nkechi," he said. "Yes. Stop building toward the exit," he said. "Please." She looked at him. "Taeyang." "I know what I did," he said. "I know how this started. I know that I put your brother in a folder, and I put you in a room, and I gave you a proposition that was not a choice, and I know that none of that is forgiven just because the months have passed and things have changed." He paused. "But I need you to know that things have changed. For me. And I am not asking for anything. I am telling you that the exit, if you want it, is available, and I will honor every term of the agreement without dispute. But I am asking you not to build toward it because you think it's the logical conclusion. Build toward it if it's what you want, not because it's what the agreement says should happen." She was quiet for a long time. "You're asking me to choose," she said. "Yes," he said. "On your own terms. Without leverage. Without instruments. Just what do you want?" She looked at the kitchen. At the table where they had drunk tea after his father came to the door. At the window where they had sat with their tea on the evening of the article. At the chair where he sat every morning when she came down, and the coffee was already made and neither of them had discussed whose responsibility it was. She thought about Yemi saying men who use leverage don't stop using leverage. She thought about Director Kong looking between them with the expression of someone tracking a variable not in the original document. She thought about the gallery and the painting, and everything important is in what he didn't paint. She thought about the folder and the gun that wasn't a gun, and the yes she had said at gunpoint. She thought about all the things she had built in this year that she had not expected to build. "I want my brother to be safe," she said. "That's done. I want my professional life to remain mine." "You've honored that." "I want," she stopped. Started again. I want to stop performing something that stopped being a performance some time ago, and I do not know exactly when that happened, and I find that both inconvenient and true. He looked at her. Inconvenient, he said.
Very, she said.
And true, he said. Yes, she said. He reached across the kitchen table and took her hand. She looked at his hand on hers. This was not in the contract, she said.
No, he said.
It was not. We would need to renegotiate, she said. Yes, he said. Entirely. Different terms. Different basis. No instruments. No leverage. No folders. She looked at him. You are still the man who did that to me, she said. I'm not pretending you're not.
I know, he said.
I am not asking you to pretend. I am asking you to decide what you want to build on what is true, the way you have been asking me to do from the beginning. She was quiet for a long moment. I'm going to call Yemi, she said, and I'm going to tell her everything. And then I'm going to tell you what I want to build. Yes, he said. That's fair. She did not take her hand away. He asked what she wanted. She said inconvenient and true. Subscribe, we're almost at the end, and it costs everything. Drop a comment. Did the fake marriage become real for you before it did for her? She called Yemi from her room. Not the guest suite now. She had moved into the main part of the house 3 months ago, not at his request, simply because the guest suite had started to feel like a position statement she was no longer making. Yemi answered on the second ring.
Talk to me, Yemi said.
She told her. All of it properly for the first time, the full year, the gallery and the painting and his father at the door, and the article and Taeyang's call, and the piece that ran on Thursday and the kitchen table and the hand. Yemi was quiet through all of it. When Nkechi finished, Yemi said, I told you men who use leverage don't stop using leverage. You did, Nkechi said. And has he used leverage since? Yemi said. No, Nkechi said. Has he used you as an instrument since?
No.
Has he asked for anything beyond what was in the original terms?
No.
He's given more than the terms required and asked for nothing additional. Yemi was quiet for a moment. Nkechi, she said. Yes.
I love you, Yemi said.
I have loved you since we were 11 years old. I know every version of you. The one who is afraid, and the one who is brave, and the one who carries things she should not have to carry because nobody else will. And I know the version of you that is in this call right now. A pause. That version of you has already made the decision. You're calling me to be told it's okay. Silence. Is it okay?
Nkechi said.
It is okay, Yemi said. With conditions. Tell me the conditions. He never uses your family again. Ever. Not as leverage, not as information, not as anything. If he does, you leave, and you make sure it costs him. Yes. You keep your professional life. Your name on your work. Your own bank account. Your identity is not absorbed into his. Already in practice, Nkechi said. And he has to meet me, Yemi said. Before anything is official, I need to look at this man in person. You want to look at him in person, Nkechi said. I want to look at him in person, Yemi confirmed. I have been your person for 20 years. This is a non-negotiable condition. I'll arrange it, Nkechi said. Good, Yemi said. Now go back downstairs. Yemi. Go back downstairs, Nkechi. She went back downstairs. He was still at the kitchen table. He had made more tea. There was a cup on her side of the table. She sat down. My best friend needs to meet you, she said. In person. Non-negotiable. Yes, he said. She's coming from Lagos next month. I'll be here, he said. She picked up the tea. Taeyang, she said. Yes.
The folder, she said.
I want it.
A pause.
He reached into the inner pocket of his jacket. He had been carrying it, she realized. Had been carrying it for how long, prepared for this moment. He set it on the table between them. She picked it up. She opened the flap. She looked at the papers inside. Then she stood, walked to the sink, and held the folder under the tap. The papers soaked. The ink ran. In 30 seconds it was nothing that would ever be readable again. She wrung the water out and put what remained in the recycling bin. There, she said. He was watching her. I was going to return it at the end of the year, he said. As agreed. I know, she said. But if we're renegotiating, we start clean. No instruments. You said so yourself. Yes, he said. She sat back down. Tell me what you want, she said. For real. Not the arrangement version. He looked at her. For a long time, with the complete attention that had always been his specific quality. The stillness of someone who is not performing presence, but actually inhabiting it. I want to know you for a long time, he said. I want to know what you observe in rooms I'm not in. I want to hear what you think is wrong with the buildings I haven't designed yet. I want to be the person you call first, instead of the person you manage. He paused. I have not wanted something this clearly in a very long time, and I find it both inconvenient and true. She looked at him. You stole my words, she said. Yes, he said. She reached across the table and took his hand. This time, she was the one who reached. Yemi arrived in Seoul on a Friday in March. She walked into the Songbuk-dong residence with the specific authority of a person who has been a woman's best friend for 20 years and has decided that this inspection will be thorough. She shook Lim Taeyang's hand. She looked at him for approximately 8 seconds with the concentrated attention of someone running a comprehensive assessment. Then she turned to Nkechi and said in Yoruba, "He's terrified of me." As he should be, Nkechi said, also in Yoruba. Taeyang looked between them. Should I ask, he said. No, Nkechi said. Yemi pointed at him. I have conditions, she said. In Korean. Precise, accented, and absolutely authoritative. He looked at Nkechi. She has conditions, Nkechi said. We agreed to them in advance. You should listen. He turned back to Yemi. Tell me, he said. Yemi told him. Every condition. He listened with the complete attention that was his specific quality, and he said yes to each one without negotiating. And when Yemi finished, he said, I understand. And I agree. And I want you to know that I am aware of what I did at the beginning of this. I am not pretending it was acceptable because the outcome has been because she and I have, he stopped. Because you fell in love with someone you started out using as a tool, Yemi said flatly. Yes, he said. And she forgave you. She is still deciding the extent of the forgiveness, he said. As she should. Yemi looked at him for another long moment. Good answer, she said. Then she turned to Nkechi and said, I like him. Don't tell him that yet. I heard that, Taeyang said. I know, Yemi said. Your Korean comprehension is very good. She looked at Nkechi. He heard it. That's also fine. He should know that I like him and that I am still watching. Still watching, Nkechi confirmed. Always watching, Yemi said. She sat down at the kitchen table with the authority of someone who has decided she is at home here. Now someone make me tea. I have been on a plane for 11 hours and I have opinions about this kitchen. Taeyang made tea. Nkechi sat across from Yemi and they looked at each other across the table and Yemi's face said, You're okay, and Nkechi's face said, I know, and neither of them needed words for it, because they had been speaking that language for 20 years. Yemi arrived. She has conditions. He said yes to all of them. Subscribe to, share this with someone who needs to hear that the beginning of a thing doesn't have to be its definition. Drop a comment. What do you think happened to Dami? 6 months later, on a Tuesday in September, Nkechi stood in her office at the logistics firm and looked at an email that had arrived at 9 in the morning. It was from her brother. Dami, 27 years old, employed at the engineering firm in Abuja for 14 months, had been promoted to project lead on a government infrastructure contract. The email was 3 sentences long and ended with, Thank you for doing what you did. I don't know everything you did, but I know it was for me. I'm going to make it worth it. She read it twice. Then she forwarded it to Yemi with no message. Yemi sent back a single Yoruba word that meant, There it is. She put her phone down and went back to work. That evening, Taeyang was at his drawing board when she got home. She had a key. She had always had a key. It had been in the original arrangement, but the feeling of the key had changed month by month until it had become simply the key to where she lived, which was here, which was where she had chosen. She stopped in the doorway of the study, which was a habit she had from a different house in a different arrangement, carrying the weight of how far. Dami got promoted, she said. He set down his pencil. Tell me, he said. She told him. He listened. When she finished, he said, He sounds like you. Reckless, she said.
No, he said.
Like someone who learns what a thing costs and decides to make it worth it. She came into the study, sat in her chair. Not the same chair as the other house. This was her chair in this room, in this study, positioned at the angle she preferred. She had positioned it herself. It had taken her 3 weeks to decide it was allowed. What are you drawing? She said. A library, he said, in a Badon. The university approached me last month. I've been trying to get the reading room right. She looked at the drawings. The light source, she said. The windows are too high. You'll get beautiful light in the upper half of the room and institutional shadow at reading level. Drop them 2 meters. He looked at the drawings. Then at her.
2 meters, he said. 2 meters, she said.
He picked up his pencil, made the adjustment, looked at it for a long time. Yes, he said. That's it. I know, she said. She opened her laptop. He went back to drawing. The pencil moved in the evening and outside Seoul did its thing, and inside the study the specific quiet of 2 people working in the same room, not performing anything, not managing anything, just present, was the whole of what was needed. She thought about the gray conference room on the 37th floor, the folder on the table, the yes at gunpoint. She thought about how far the distance was between that room and this one, and whether the distance had been worth the crossing, and whether the crossing had changed her, and what it meant that the answer to all 3 was yes. She thought, I did not choose the beginning. I chose every step after it. She thought, that is enough. That is more than enough. She looked at the drawings of the library in Ibadan with its windows dropped 2 meters to put the light at reading level, at the height where people actually sat with the things they were trying to understand, and she thought about what it meant to design something for the specific human experience of being inside it.
Taeyang, she said.
When you go to Ibadan for the site visit, I want to come. He looked up. Yes, he said. I was going to ask. You should have just asked, she said. Yes, he said. You're right. I'm still learning. I know, she said. So am I. The pencil moved. The library took shape. And outside, Seoul and Lagos and Ibadan and all the cities they moved between were doing what cities do, holding their millions of separate stories without preference or apology, patient and enormous and entirely indifferent to the specific coordinates of 2 people in a study who had started with a folder and an ultimatum and ended up here, which was not where either of them had been aiming and was exactly where they needed to be. She went back to her laptop. He went back to his drawing. The evening went on. And that, the study, the drawings, the dropped windows letting light fall at reading level, the ordinary Tuesday, the yes to Ibadan, is exactly where we leave them. She said yes to a fake marriage at gunpoint. She ended up choosing something real. Subscribe to, share this with the person who needs to know that the beginning of a thing is not its definition. And tell me in the comments, what's the first thing Nkechi corrects in the Ibadan library? The week after the kitchen table conversation, things shifted in ways that were small and irreversible. She started leaving her notes on the kitchen counter instead of taking them to her room. Not deliberately, she noticed it on a Wednesday, her handwritten reminders about the procurement review scattered next to his coffee cup, and she thought about moving them and then didn't. He didn't comment on them. He worked around them the way you work around something that belongs in a space. He started asking her opinion on things outside the arrangement. Not the corporate strategy, not the press positioning. Those conversations had always been part of the deal. He asked her, on a Thursday morning while she was getting coffee, what she thought about the east elevation of a building he was reviewing for a client. She set down her mug and looked at the plans spread on the kitchen table and said, the facade is fighting the neighborhood. Every building on that street has horizontal emphasis, and this one is trying to go vertical. It will look like an argument. He looked at the plans for a long time. Then he said, yes, exactly that. He did not say, I was already thinking that. He said exactly that, which was something else. Director Kong noticed. She came to the residence for a strategy debrief on a Friday afternoon, 6 weeks after the board audit closure, and sat across from both of them at the dining table with her tablet and her strategy document and her expression of someone tracking variables, and halfway through the briefing she stopped and looked between them and said, with the flat precision of someone naming a thing that has been in the room for a while, whatever is happening between you 2 is either the best development, In this campaign, or the most complicated one?
Probably both. She looked at her tablet.
I'm choosing to treat it as the former and move on. Nkechi looked at the table. Taeyang looked at the table. Yes, he said. Moving on. Director Kong moved on. After she left, Nkechi said, She's perceptive. She's been with me for 9 years, he said. She knows every version of this company and most versions of me. What did she think? Nkechi said, when you told her what the arrangement was?
A pause. She told me it was a mistake, he said.
She said, you can't use a person as a strategy and expect the strategy to stay contained. That's not how people work. He paused. She was right, as she usually is. What did you say? Nkechi said. I said I understood the risk and I was prepared to manage it, he said. And were you? She said. No, he said. I was entirely unprepared for you. She looked at him. That, she said, is the most honest thing you have said to me in 7 months. I've been working up to it, he said. She almost laughed. It came out as a different thing, a sound that lived in the same neighborhood, warm and involuntary, the kind of sound you make when something surprising turns out to be exactly right. He looked at her making that sound, and something in his face did the thing it did. The fractional unwinding, the controlled surface softening in the specific way of someone who has forgotten, briefly, that they were managing anything.
Don't, she said.
I'm not doing anything, he said. You're looking at me, she said. Yes, he said. I am. She picked up her coffee. Director Kong is right, she said. It's both. Both, he agreed. She went back to the procurement report she'd been working on. He went to his drawing board. The afternoon continued in its ordinary way, which was its own kind of extraordinary. The night she moved her things from the guest suite to the main bedroom, she did not announce it. It was a Sunday in January, 5 months into the arrangement, 8 weeks after the article and the kitchen table conversation, 3 weeks after Director Kang's observation. She had been thinking about it for 2 weeks in the careful peripheral way she thought about things she was not ready to commit to, and then found herself committing to anyway. She moved 3 things: her reading lamp, her night table books, and the framed photograph of her mother that she had kept in the guest suite since the first day. Those 3 things, placed in specific positions in the main bedroom, were her version of a declaration. He said nothing about it that evening. He saw the lamp and the books and the photograph. She knew he saw them because he was not a person who missed things, and he said nothing. At 11 at night, lying in the dark, he said, The photograph of your mother. Where was it in the guest suite? On the nightstand, she said. Same position.
Good spot, he said.
I thought so, she said. A pause. Nkechi, he said. Yes. Thank you, he said. For this. I'm not doing it for you, she said. I'm doing it because I decided to. I know, he said. That's why I'm thanking you. She lay in the dark and thought about all the ways a decision made under duress becomes, through the accumulation of smaller choices made freely, something entirely different from its origin. The yes at gunpoint had been one thing. The lamp and the books and her mother's photograph on the nightstand were something she had chosen with her whole self, in full knowledge, without a folder anywhere in sight. That was the difference. That was everything. 3 months after Yemi's visit, on a Tuesday morning that was trying hard to be spring but had not quite committed, Nkechi sat at the kitchen table with a cup of coffee and her laptop and a procurement brief that needed her attention, and Taeyang across from her with his own coffee and the site review documents for a project in Gwangju that was going into pre-approval. This was Tuesday. Tuesday was ordinary. Tuesday had become ordinary in the specific way of things that are built slowly and then suddenly are simply the fabric of a life. The Gwangju client wants a meeting this month, he said. In person. They'd like to meet you. She looked up. Why would they want meet me? She said. Because I mentioned you reviewed the facade problem on the Mapo project and your read was better than mine, he said. They asked who you were. I told them. You told them your wife pointed out a structural issue, she said. I told them the person I work with most closely pointed out a structural issue, he said. They read the bio. They know you're a structural engineer. They want to know if you consult on the foundation design for the Gwangju build. She looked at her coffee. That's my professional work, she said. That's separate from. Completely separate, he said. Paid as an independent contract through your firm. Nothing to do With the Lim Group. Just a client who wants the best structural engineer for a specific problem. He paused. Which is you? She looked at him. You're not trying to absorb my professional life into yours, she said. I am trying to get you paid for being excellent, he said. Those are different things. You told me that yourself.
She thought about it.
Send me the brief, she said. I'll review it and decide. Yes, he said. She went back to her procurement report. He went back to the Guangzhou documents. The brief arrived in her inbox 12 minutes later, and she looked at it, and it was, as she had expected it to be, a genuinely interesting structural problem. A building on a floodplain adjacent site that required foundation engineering. She had done similar work on twice before. She looked at the problem for 10 minutes and started making notes. I'll do the meeting, she said. He looked up. Good, he said. But if they offer a contract and the terms aren't right, I walk, she said. My professional terms, not yours. Of course, he said. She looked at the foundation brief. At the floodplain variables. At the specific engineering problem of building something that would hold against forces it couldn't always predict. She thought, this is familiar. She made another note and kept working. She called her mother on the first Sunday of every month. This had been her practice since moving to Seoul 3 years ago. A standing call. 1 hour, her mother's voice filling the distance between Lagos and whatever city Nkechi was standing in with the specific warmth of someone who loves you without agenda. Her mother had not been told everything. She had been told, I am well, the work is good, Seoul is a fine city. She had been told in February that there was a man. She had been told in April that the man was serious. How serious, her mother had said. Serious enough that I moved my lamp, Nkechi had said. Her mother, who had been married for 38 years to a man she had met under complicated circumstances and who had chosen through the accumulation of small decisions until the choosing was simply the shape of her life, understood immediately what the lamp meant. Good, her mother had said. When do I meet him? Soon, Nkechi had said. Soon is not a date, her mother had said. I know, Mama. Nkechi. Yes. Is he good to you? Her mother said. In Yoruba, the question that carried everything. She thought about the kitchen and the tea and the hand and the folders soaked under the tap. She thought about the lamp and the books and the photograph on the nightstand. She thought about the Ibadan library windows dropped to reading level and the Guangzhou foundation brief in her inbox and the Tuesday mornings that had become ordinary. He is learning to be, she said. And so am I. Her mother was quiet for a moment. That is the honest answer, her mother said. I trust the honest answer. I know, Nkechi said. I learned that from you. Come home, her mother said. Bring him. Your aunties want to see what a Korean man looks like up close. Mama, Nkechi said. They have opinions, her mother said, with the specific unapologetic warmth of someone who has raised a daughter well and intends to enjoy the results. All of us have opinions. That is how you know we love you. Nkechi laughed. Properly, fully. The laugh that came from the Lagos part of her. The part that her mother and her sister and Yemi and the aunties had built long before Seoul had any claim on her. I'll come home in October, she said. I'll bring him. October, her mother said, satisfied. Put it in the calendar. It's in the calendar, Nkechi said. After she hung up, she went to find Taeyang, who was at his drawing board, and she said, We're going to Lagos in October. My mother wants to meet you, and my aunties want to look at you. He looked up. Look at me, he said. They have opinions, she said. About everything. It's how they show love. You'll need to be prepared. How do I prepare, he said. You can't really, she said. You just go in honest and hope the honest is enough. He looked at her. That's the only strategy one have left anyway, he said. Good, she said. Then you're ready. She left him to his drawings and went back to the Guangzhou foundation brief, which was waiting patiently on her laptop screen, asking to be understood. She understood it. She wrote 3 pages of structural notes and sent them to the client before noon. They responded in 40 minutes. This is exactly what we needed. Can you be in Guangzhou on the 15th? She looked at her calendar. Checked with Taeyang's schedule, not because she needed his permission, but because they had started comparing calendars on Sunday evenings the way couples do, the small administrative evidence of a life being shared. The 15th worked. She confirmed the meeting. Outside, Seoul was doing its spring thing, the air soft and persistent, the cherry trees in the neighborhood park 3 days from the specific moment when they would be exactly right, the city gearing itself toward the version of itself that became between April and June when the light was at its most generous. She looked out the window. A year ago, she had been in a gray conference room with a folder on the table between them and a yes that felt exactly like a gun.
She was here now.
At a kitchen table in Songbukdong, with the Gwangju brief and the spring light and the calendar with October marked for Lagos, and the sound of a pencil from the study, which she had learned to locate in a house the way you learn the specific sounds of any place that has become yours. Here was where she had ended up. Here was what she had chosen. Not the beginning, which had not been hers to choose, but every step after it, which had been entirely hers. She went back to work. The pencil moved in the study. Spring arrived outside, exactly on schedule. The Gwangju meeting happened on a Thursday that was trying to be warm and mostly succeeding. The client was a cultural foundation building a community art center on a site that had given 3 previous engineering firms pause: the floodplain adjacent ground, the subsurface water table, the specific combination of variables that made straightforward foundation solutions unworkable. Nkechi had spent 10 days on the brief before the meeting. She had run the calculations twice. She had a solution that was unconventional and structurally defensible and, she believed, better than what a more cautious approach would produce. She presented it in a conference room in Gwangju with 4 members of the foundation board watching and taking notes. Taeyang was in the room. He had come as the lead architect, which was his role, and she was aware of him the way she was always aware of him in rooms now, not anxiously, just as a presence that was part of the composition. When she finished presenting the foundation solution, the board's lead engineer, a man in his 60s who had the expression of someone who has seen many proposals and has developed a sophisticated skepticism, said, "The hybrid pile configuration on the eastern section. Can you walk me through the load transfer logic?" She walked him through it. Precisely, in full technical detail, without hedging. He asked 3 follow-up questions. She answered all 3. At the end of the 3rd answer, he looked at her and said, "This is the right solution. I see why the previous firms went with the more conservative approach, but the conservative approach would have required a foundation depth that compromised the basement community space. This preserves both. Well done."
"Thank you," she said.
Across the table, she felt rather than saw Taeyang's attention. Not pride, exactly, something more contained than pride. The specific quality of someone who is watching a person they know be exactly themselves and finding it exactly right. After the meeting, walking back to the parking structure, he said, "The hybrid pile configuration. You got that from the Incheon coastal project 3 years ago." She looked at him. Her name on the contract. Her professional reputation behind it. The Lim Group was listed as the architectural firm. She was listed as structural consultant. 2 separate entities, 2 separate signatures, 1 project. Her senior colleague, a woman named Dr. Huang who had mentored her through the first year in Seoul and who knew approximately half of the story of the last year and had drawn no incorrect conclusions from the half she knew, looked at the signed contract and said, "The Gwangju Foundation solution is going to be referenced in structural engineering literature. You know that."
"I hope so," Nkechi said.
"It's the right use of the hybrid configuration for that soil type," Dr. Huang said. "I've been waiting for someone to apply it to a floodplain adjacent problem. The math was always there. You just had to see it." "I'd seen it before," Nkechi said. "Different site, similar variables." "The Incheon coastal project," Dr. Huang said. "Yes." Dr. Huang looked at her. "How are you?" she said. "This year has been, from the outside, it's looked significant." Nkechi thought about significant. "It has been significant," she said. "In most of the ways that matter." "The marriage," Dr. Huang said. Not prying. Stating. "Yes," Nkechi said. "And the work. Both of them. Separately. Both of them real." Dr. Huang nodded. "Good," she said. "Both real is the right answer." She picked up the signed contract. "I'll file this. You should go celebrate. It's not every Monday you sign a contract for a building that will be standing in 30 years because you solved a problem 3 other firms couldn't." Nkechi looked at the contract. "It will stand," she said. "The configuration is right." "I know," Dr. Huang said. Go. She went. She called Taeyang from the street.
It's signed, she said.
I know, he said. My contract coordinator confirmed this morning. Congratulations. Dr. Huang says it'll be in the literature, she said. It will be, he said. I sent the foundation brief to a colleague at SNU last week. She called me this morning before I could tell you. She said, where has this engineer been, and why haven't I heard of her until now? Nkechi stopped walking. You sent my work to an SNU colleague, she said. I sent your work to an SNU colleague, he said, with your professional bio and your firm details. Not as your husband. As a colleague who encountered excellent work and thought it should be seen by someone who would recognize it. She stood on the pavement in November Seoul with the signed contract in her bag, and the SNU colleague, who had asked where has this engineer been, and she felt something she had been too careful to let herself feel for too long. Not just gratitude, not just warmth, but the specific feeling of being seen professionally by someone who had every reason and no reason to see you, someone who had chosen to.
Taeyang, she said.
Yes. That was the right thing to do, she said.
I know, he said.
Your work should be seen. She was quiet for a moment. Come home early tonight, she said. I'll cook.
A pause.
You're going to cook, he said. I cook, she said. You've seen me cook. I've seen you make coffee, he said. And once rice. Tonight, I'm making a gussi, she said. My mother's recipe. It takes 3 hours and it will fill the house with a smell you don't have a reference for yet, and you are going to eat all of it. A beat. I'll be home by 6, he said.
Good, she said.
She went to the market. She bought the ingredients with the specific attention of someone replicating something that matters, the locust beans, the crayfish, the specific ratio of palm oil that her mother had given her in grams rather than measurements, because some things you learn by weight. She cooked for 3 hours in the kitchen of the Songbukdong house, with the windows slightly open to let the smell settle into the neighborhood. He came home at 6. He stood in the kitchen doorway and looked at the stove and at her and at the November light coming through the window, and he said, What is that smell? Igusi, she said. Sit down. He sat down. She served it. He ate it with the concentrated attention he brought to anything he was experiencing for the first time, present, careful, not performing a reaction but actually having one. Tell me what's in it, he said. She told him. Every ingredient. The locust beans and what they did to the depth of the flavor. The crayfish and why her mother used a specific grade. The palm oil and the ratio that her grandmother had decided on, and her mother had continued, and she had memorized at 12 years old in a kitchen in Seoul-sharp. He listened with his full attention. I want to learn how to make this, he said. She looked at him. It takes 3 hours, she said. I know, he said. Show me. She looked at this man, who had used a folder as a weapon and said sorry without excuses and walked toward her mother's Annie's without flinching and sent her work to an SNU colleague because it should be seen, and was now asking to learn how to make a dish his wife's grandmother had decided on in a kitchen in Lagos, and thought about all the ways a person is more than their worst decision. She thought, this one is learning. She thought, so am I. Next Sunday, she said. We'll start from scratch. 3 hours. You take notes. I'll take notes, he said. She looked at the kitchen. At the table where a year ago she had come back through the front door and found his father in the hallway and answered it with nothing on her face but composure. At the window where they had sat with tea. At the chair that was hers now because she had decided it was. Taeyang, she said. Yes. The beginning of this was wrong, she said. I need you to know I still know that. I am not revising the beginning. I know, he said. I don't ask you to, but I am choosing this, she said. What it is now, fully, with everything visible, that is mine, and I want you to know it's mine. He looked at her. I know, he said. That is the most important thing to me, that it is your choice. Good, she said. She finished her gussi. He finished his. The kitchen smelled of Lagos in a house in Seoul, and outside the city was doing its November thing, and somewhere in the distance the Han River was being silver and patient and entirely itself. She thought about her mother saying, his face is honest. She thought about Yemi saying, I like him.
Don't tell him yet.
She thought about Dammy saying, I'm going to make it worth it. She thought, yes, all of this, worth it. She started clearing the table. Her name on the contract. Her professional reputation behind it. The Lim Group was listed as the architectural firm. She was listed as structural consultant. 2 separate entities, 2 separate signatures, 1 project. Her senior colleague, a woman named Dr. Huang who had mentored her through the first year in Seoul and who knew approximately half of the story of the last year and had drawn no incorrect conclusions from the half she knew, looked at the signed contract and said, "The Gwangju Foundation solution is going to be referenced in structural engineering literature. You know that."
I hope so, Nkechi said.
"It's the right use of the hybrid configuration for that soil type," Dr. Huang said. "I've been waiting for someone to apply it to a floodplain adjacent problem. The math was always there. You just had to see it." "I'd seen it before," Nkechi said. "Different site, similar variables." "The Incheon Coastal Project," Dr. Huang said. "Yes." Dr. Huang looked at her. "How are you?" she said. "This year has been, from the outside, it's looked significant." Nkechi thought about significant. "It has been significant," she said. "In most of the ways that matter." "The marriage," Dr. Huang said. Not prying. Stating. "Yes," Nkechi said. "And the work. Both of them. Separately. Both of them real." Dr. Huang nodded. "Good," she said. "Both real is the right answer." She picked up the signed contract. "I'll file this. You should go celebrate. It's not every Monday you sign a contract for a building that will be standing in 30 years because you solved a problem 3 other firms couldn't." Nkechi looked at the contract. "It will stand," she said. "The configuration is right." "I know," Dr. Huang said. "Go." She went. She called Taeyang from the street. "It's signed," she said. "I know," he said. "My contract coordinator confirmed this morning." "Congratulations." "Dr. Huang says it'll be in the literature," she said. "It will be," he said. "I sent the foundation brief to a colleague at SNU last week. She called me this morning before I could tell you. She said, 'Where has this engineer been, and why haven't I heard of her until now?'" Nkechi stopped walking. "You sent my work to an SNU colleague," she said. "I sent your work to an SNU colleague," he said, "with your professional bio and your firm details. Not as your husband. As a colleague who encountered excellent work and thought it should be seen by someone who would recognize it." She stood on the pavement in November Seoul with the signed contract in her bag, and the SNU colleague, who had asked where has this engineer been, and she felt something she had been too careful to let herself feel for too long. Not just gratitude, not just warmth, but the specific feeling of being seen professionally by someone who had every reason and no reason to see you, someone who had chosen to. "Taeyang," she said. "Yes." "That was the right thing to do," she said. "I know," he said. "Your work should be seen." She was quiet for a moment. "Come home early tonight," she said. "I'll cook." A pause. "You're going to cook," he said. "I cook," she said. "You've seen me cook." "I've seen you make coffee," he said. "And once rice." "Tonight, I'm making a gussi," she said. "My mother's recipe. It takes 3 hours and it will fill the house with a smell you don't have a reference for yet, and you are going to eat all of it." A beat. "I'll be home by 6, he said. "Good," she said. She went to the market. She bought the ingredients with the specific attention of someone replicating something that matters, the locust beans, the crayfish, the specific ratio of palm oil that her mother had given her in grams rather than measurements, because some things you learn by weight. She cooked for 3 hours in the kitchen of the Songbukdong house, with the windows slightly open to let the smell settle into the neighborhood. He came home at 6. He stood in the kitchen doorway and looked at the stove and at her and at the November light coming through the window, and he said, "What is that smell?" "Egusi," she said. "Sit down." He sat down. She served it. He ate it with the concentrated attention he brought to anything he was experiencing for the first time, present, careful, not performing a reaction but actually having one. "Tell me what's in it," he said. She told him. Every ingredient. The locust beans and what they did to the depth of the flavor. The crayfish and why her mother used a specific grade. The palm oil and the ratio that her grandmother had decided on, and her mother had continued, and she had memorized at 12 years old in a kitchen in Seoul-sharp. He listened with his full attention. "I want to learn how to make this," he said. She looked at him. "It takes 3 hours," she said. "I know," he said. "Show me." She looked at this man, who had used a folder as a weapon and said sorry without excuses and walked toward her mother's Annie's without flinching and sent her work to an SNU colleague because it should be seen, and was now asking to learn how to make a dish his wife's grandmother had decided on in a kitchen in Lagos, and thought about all the ways a person is more than their worst decision. She thought, this one is learning. She thought, so am I. Next Sunday, she said. We'll start from scratch. 3 hours. You take notes. I'll take notes, he said. She looked at the kitchen. At the table where a year ago she had come back through the front door and found his father in the hallway and answered it with nothing on her face but composure. At the window where they had sat with tea. At the chair that was hers now because she had decided it was. Taeyang, she said. Yes. The beginning of this was wrong, she said. I need you to know I still know that. I am not revising the beginning. I know, he said. I don't ask you to, but I am choosing this, she said. What it is now, fully, with everything visible, that is mine, and I want you to know it's mine. He looked at her. I know, he said. That is the most important thing to me, that it is your choice. Good, she said. She finished her gussie. He finished his. The kitchen smelled of Lagos in a house in Seoul, and outside the city was doing its November thing, and somewhere in the distance the Han River was being silver and patient and entirely itself. She thought about her mother saying, his face is honest. She thought about Yemi saying, I like him.
Don't tell him yet.
She thought about Dammy saying, I'm going to make it worth it. She thought, yes, all of this, worth it. She started clearing the table. He helped. The evening went on around them. Ordinary and full, and exactly what they had made of it.